Welcome back to the Non-Traditional Veterinarian Podcast. I'm Dr. Bamonte. If this is your first episode that you're listening to, I am so happy you're here, and this is a great one to tune into, whether you're listening on Apple or Spotify or watching on YouTube. Because if you have been following me on social media for any amount of time, you probably know about Jake. And we have Jake's mom here, Carla Distasio. And Jake has been part of my care since August of 2025. And Jake and Carla have come such a long way, and they're both so, so special to me. And I really think Jake's story could do a lot of good for other pet parents who may be in a very similar situation with their dog and maybe feeling how Carla was. And I joke with Carla all the time that I want to put her on staff because she is so good at communicating and advocating. So, welcome to the podcast, Carla. We wish Jake was here, but we knew that he would take over the whole podcast barking.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so great to be here. Um, I first want to start out just by saying how grateful I am to have worked with you for the last 8 months, because truly without you, Jake would not be here. So I first and foremost want to say that. Um, for everyone who's listening, Jake is my 14 and a half year old Chihuahua Brittany Spaniel mix. And he actually will be 15 this year, which I feel is a huge accomplishment in the dog world.
It is. Can you tell
so
everyone just
I'll,
a oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I just want to first say that I'm just blessed that he's here, because 14 is a huge accomplishment. And I actually have a feeling we're going to be making it to 15.
I'll have a quinceañero party and for the honor is mine and I really appreciate you being so appreciative and it's also a testament to what you've done. I'm coming in at the tail end of this. This has all been you. And so I want you to tell the people, tell them about Jake. Tell them about him.
So Jake has unfortunately struggled, I feel, for a good majority of his life with many, many chronic health conditions, from bilious vomiting to a lot of GI problems to a lot of food and or environmental allergies and intolerances. And GI wise, I feel like he has struggled for a far majority of his life. He has had excessive paw pad licking. He has had severe hyperkeratosis of his paw pads, chronic bacterial infections, chronic yeast infections, you name it, we've had it. For most of his life, I won't say all of his life, but a definite 7 to 10 years. Um, I feel like he is a pretty dependent dog, which he does very well with, I guess, to say the right people. He is very, very smart and very perceptive with what he likes and what he doesn't like. I think that's the Chihuahua in him, truly, that Chihuahuas have really mighty spirits and they
Yes.
kind of let you know who's boss.
Yes. Yes.
um, so Jake, for most of his life, I feel, has struggled, and he has truly been on, over the last decade, no exaggeration, probably 10 to 12 dog foods. From hydrolyzed proteins to regular food to wet food, canned food, soft food, you name it, we've been on it. And none of the dog foods truly over the years have really agreed with him. We do well for a little while, and then we would always have to kind of backtrack. And a lot of the vets that we've worked with over the years have recommended switching to a different protein source and doing a lot of, I guess, food trials over the course of his life. And he would do well for a little while, but we would never hold for more than a few months without having some kind of major setback. So
That's a lot of years to have that back and forth. And I still remember to this day, literally where I was sitting when I got your email. And what I don't remember is I don't remember what scrub color I was wearing, but I almost remember exactly every other detail, where I was at, what direction I was facing, where my computer. I just remember because I had never talked to you. I didn't know anything about you other than you were referred to me from Fetch Specialty Hospital. And I could hear the and almost like the panic in your voice. And you, the whole time we've been working together, I've never felt panic coming from you. Everything has always been inquisitive and intentional and double checking or reassuring, but I've never felt a hysteria or a panic. And I felt like I heard the panic and the despair in your voice. And I will never forget that. And I still remember, in fact, and I think you were the last person I ever did this with. I remember I met with you on a weekend because I was like, hey, I had a last minute availability in my like personal schedule where I was like, I can move him up because I think you were weeks booked out. And I was
Yes.
something about reading your message. And I was like, I don't know if this dog has weeks. And I try my best to accommodate people as quickly as possible. And I just happened to have that time, which I typically don't have. And I still remember meeting with you on Zoom and how delicate Jake was at the time. And this was kind of like his Hail Mary down the field.
Yes. Yes. Jake was hospitalized last year in July. And from about July till probably October, November, we were in truly a 3-month flare. Jake stopped responding to all traditional medications. He did not respond to prednisone, cyclosporine, which are, correct me if I'm wrong, two of the top things that usually vets reach for to get a dog out of a flare. And Jake was not responding to either one. He went from 34 pounds down to 26 in a few months. Um, it was truly a Hail Mary because the specialist that we were working with at the time ended up putting him on cyclosporine as sort of a last resort. And the cyclosporine did work to pull him out of the flare. However, I really ideally didn't want him on a chemotherapy drug.
Oh, the
Um,
chlorambucil.
Chlorambucil,
Yes,
sorry.
yes. But he
Chlorambucil,
was on
yes.
cyclosporin at one point too.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yes, prednisone and cyclosporine. Sorry, that was right. Cyclosporine was not working. Prednisone was not working. The chlorambucil, that was it. Was the third drug that we tried, and it was ultimately the drug that pulled him out of the flare. However, I really didn't want him on it long term. It is a chemotherapy drug. There are definite risks to being on those drugs, definite side effects, and truly, Jake had all of them. We had severe muscle wasting for months. He went down to 26 pounds. He was vomiting, truly retching in the ER for a good month, having breathing problems, wheezing, coughing. Again, you name it, we had it. And the vet who I was working with explained to me that he really didn't think that Jake was going to make it. He said to me that he had never really seen this much before, that this was a very rare specific case scenario where maybe 1 in 30 dogs doesn't respond to prednisone and cyclosporine, and we were that dog. um, I always felt from the time he got hospitalized that there was something that was being missed. And the reason I say that avidly is I held on to two things. One, I feel like I do know how to read a CBC fairly well. And the one thing that was standing out is there was elevated liver enzymes for months, but nothing else was really standing out on that CBC as something alarming. We had internal medicine look at him, oncology look at him. Everyone at first thought he had cancer. He was presenting with some clinical definite symptoms of leading towards there's got to be a mass somewhere. Um, I didn't think it was that, only because, again, reading the CBC, it wasn't pointing in that direction. But we did have a severely elevated ALT, and his ALT was telling me his body was in trouble. It kept creeping up every week. He was having a hard time truly detoxing. Again, we're very blessed that we were even able to pull through. It was a very scary time. So ultimately, the chlorambucil worked, and I was put into your hands because the specialist at the time was treating another dog there who also pulled through a flare. And they told me that this was going to be like a last hope, that they really didn't think that the food was the main component to what was happening. They told me they really have never seen a dog not be able to process some kind of dog food. And the reason I always held on to that, um, going against sort of that, is every time we've been on some kind of chicken diet, Jake has struggled pretty much immediately. And he did better when he wasn't on chicken. We've been on rabbit, we've been on duck, we've been on a couple of other of the different protein sources, but chicken was always pretty much an immediate response to him. So I always felt like, okay, the chicken allergy is definitely a problem. We did 4 different food trials last year. We did, I think, Purina HA. We did a soy diet. We tried to pull different protein sources last year, but truth be told, none of them were working. And when none of them were working, a lot of the people that I was working with at the time said, Carla, there's no way the dog can be allergic to every dog food. And I said to them, well, what is it then? Because we have been on like 10 to 15 foods and this dog is not processing any of them. I always held on to those 2 things, that we had a elevated ALT, waxing and waning for years, and that Jake couldn't take in any food. Those 2 things kept me holding on to, there's definitely something in this food that is not agreeing with him, that he's not able to process. And I'm really, like I said, grateful that the specialist that I was working with put me in your hands, because we were truly days away from making a decision that Jake wasn't going to pull through this. They told me that it would truly be a 1 in a million case if he did.
And here he
And
is,
yes,
14 and a half, almost
yes,
14 and a half. Later this month, he'll truly be 14 and a half. But it's also a testament that you knew in your gut, no pun intended for Jake's gut, that something here was missing. And I remember when you came to me, and Jake, I think, was almost a half a pound. Like that's what he was losing a week. And I was like, we don't have much more for him to lose. And and the good news is when you had come to me, you had tried so much. And I think that's a good thing when people come to me and they've tried 4 different diets or these medications. And when Jake came to me, he was on a lot of medications, a lot, which he
yes,
no longer is on. But that
yes,
tells us like these are things that we've tried. We know that what works or doesn't work for him. And I know that that had to be very stressful. You've had him since he was very young. They become part of our family. And sometimes I'm like Dr. Carla in the house because you know so much, you educate yourself. And what I want anyone who's listening or watching to this to know that I also believe we've gotten here not by luck. It has been a lot of intention. There's been some trial and error. But in order for a patient like Jake, a pet like Jake, to go where he was days away from you having to make a very brave and long-term decision for him, and where we are now took a lot of collaboration. It took a lot of compliance. It took a lot of trust. It took a lot of
yes,
action taking, and you did all of that. Like, if I could clone Carla, I would, because I'm like every recommendation, I'm like, hey Carla, I think we should do this, or hey, let's wait on this, or hey, let's go slow with this, or hey, let's actually speed this up. You put it into action immediately. And I mean, I think I have more pictures. I may have more pictures of Jake than my own dog. And it's just seeing the improvement in his muscle mass on his head on a 13-year-old, then 14-year-old dog. Most 14-year-old dogs don't recover muscle and like weight in the way
yes,
that he did. But I gave you the tools and you have been a huge part of this. You've been so compliant. And I use you and Jake a lot for examples that when I talk to pet parents, they're like, okay, what test should I do? Or what option? Or there's, information overwhelm because there's like, wait, I have so many options when I thought I was at the end of the road. And I tell them, like, let me tell you about Jake, where he was when he came to me, and we didn't do everything at once for him. Now,
correct.
maybe would we have gotten to where we are now a little bit earlier? Maybe we don't know. And the shoulda, coulda, woulda, it doesn't belong here. What does belong here is that we took it step by step. And the beauty in that is that we were also able to pinpoint things that were supporting him and ways that we had to pivot on where he was.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. When I, started working with you, we started, and I think first and foremost, that every pet owner should hear this truly across the board in America, that the first test that we did was a gut microbiome test, followed by, I believe, was it a fur analysis test to test his minerals?
His minerals and his heavy metals. Yes, because it was, because I remember I then, shortly after we got the results back, I was at the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association, and the lab that I used for that test, which now knows both of us very, very well, I asked them questions about, hey, like this is what I'm thinking regarding him. We're changing his diet. I pulled in that other additional expert that like, hey, am I right on this? So yes, it was the heavy metal mineral. And then we progressed down them. In fact, just recently we added on more tests because I was like, hey, let's get the full picture here and let's see what's going on for him.
Yes, the gut microbiome test, first and foremost. I think that every dog in America that is having any kind of GI upset, any kind of paw pad licking, any kind of bilious vomiting, any kind of really reoccurrent problems should definitely first and foremost have a gut microbiome test. I think it's kind of the holy grail and foundation of the body. And that test is truly not offered in many traditional settings. You don't hear of it very often. I don't think it's the first thing that people think of. And I think truly going there first helped kind of build the start of where we needed to go next. Followed by the fur test, followed by a vitamin D test. And I'm really so grateful that we did do a vitamin D test because Jake's numbers were really at a scary level. I think he was at 25, and a
It
dog
was
should be 100 to 150.
correct.
So that was very eye-opening because I was saying, okay, the vitamin D is this low. Like, what are we sort of missing from that? And the lab that we have worked with, which, by the way, go VDI lab, your
Yes, we
name,
love them.
I will forever be grateful to this lab. I think they are punctual, they are serious about what they do, they are really in it for the pets. And I'm really grateful that they gave us advice that when they saw such a low vitamin D without, some again type of mass showing up, the next thing they went to is that there was something else that was stressing his body. And the first thing they recommended is to do a mold test, which we did find out that Jake tested positive for mycotoxins. I think there was 3 out of 5 of them.
There was.
And from that, it was like, okay, well, he was positive for mycotoxins. We had a severely altered gut microbiome. I think on the fur analysis test, some of the minerals, I think you can correct me, were not where they should have been, as
Correct.
far as I think he was pretty depleted in a couple of areas.
He was low. He didn't have any heavy metals, which was the big thing that I was worried about. Not that these minerals being low are okay, but I was also like, hey, do we have a speed bump in our way or barricade with heavy metals? And he didn't, thankfully. And especially
So,
because pets on highly processed food that have been on it for a while, those are the pets I'm most concerned for having these exposures. And so
right.
you're right. We went through them. And I have some pet owners that are like, I want to know everything up front. I want to do them all right now. And I have some pet owners that are like, hey, can I do them bite size? And I'm like, yes, let me tell you about Carla and Jake. And I like to let pet owners know we can do this at your pace. Just know that this is going to dictate the pace, however, at how quickly we can recuperate. And so we can go test by test, month by month. Absolutely. And one test may, like his vitamin D, clued us into testing for the mycotoxins, and boom, there they were. And I like to let pet owners know, yes, we can do that. And just know that this just may push back the finish line just a little bit, but we're
Yes.
still going to get there. We will still get there hand in hand. We will get there.
I think that truly by doing those couple of tests, it was such a game changer because when you see a dog with a severely altered gut microbiome, and I feel there were multiple reasons for that. Jake had been treated chronically, and I mean chronically, for years with multiple antibiotics, multiple fungal and sort of, I guess, bacterial shampoos. His paw pads we treated. I think we did a couple of rounds of fluconazole for yeast. And I think we had such almost like a backlog. It was like a clogged duck almost of many antibiotics over the years, many yeast treatments, shampoos. We kind of had like a dog that wasn't able to detox from all of that. And it was like a snowball building for many years because we weren't getting down to a lot of the root causes. And that's where this is at, is root causes, digging deeper to find out what is underneath, as you always say, like the layers of the onion.
Yeah.
I think most of the Western world today is okay, we have all these symptoms. What do we sort of do? For many years, I was told, Carla, we're never going to figure out all of Jake's allergies. And I kind of agree with that, but we've come pretty close.
Yeah.
So I take with that it takes a lot of digging to really find out the whole picture, especially when you're coming to dogs who don't talk, can't tell us what's wrong. They are definitely ecosystems in that they lick their bodies, take in everything from the outside world, to grass, to pesticides, to the floors in the house. They truly take in everything. And I think that's a big thing today with why those tests are so important, because dogs can't tell us, oh, my stomach's hurting. I went in the yard today and licked some chemicals and now it's in my body. They just can't tell us that. So without those tests, you're left to a lot of guesswork. I think Apoquel and Cytopoint, which we were on both of them for years, are the first line of treatment for many dogs that are showing symptoms of allergies, because pet owners don't know what to do and they're frustrated thinking, how are we supposed to figure out what the dog's allergic to? I don't think people 100% know where to start when it comes to allergies, because there's so many things that dogs could be allergic to and intolerant to. So after we did those tests, we did run a series of pet intolerance tests through Glacier Peaks, which, by the way, they are another wonderful company. They run a panel. I believe it's almost 400 different, things that dogs can be intolerant to. And there were some people that kind of, at first tried to shy me away from that, going, oh, we don't see a lot of accuracy in those tests. Dogs still have problems. He's still going to lick, itch, still have vomiting. A lot of people tried to kind of steer me away from them at first. And I said, you know what? If Jake is a testimony to anything in this world, it's that when you don't give up and when you dig, you will always find.
Yes.
Um, so we did run a Glacier Peaks pet intolerance test, and his intolerance test did show what I have been trying to really prove for years, is that he is intolerant to chicken, sweet potato, and vegetable oil, which those three things alone are in probably 90% of the dog foods in some way, shape, or form. So when we started removing all of those little by little, we started seeing Jake really a completely different dog. We had no more retching, no more wheezing, no more breathing problems. His coughing was down. No more, again, bilious vomiting. We had a completely different dog just by removing everything that the dog was intolerant to. So I do want to say to all the pet owners out there, if you are struggling in any kind of a way with allergies or any kind of intolerance tests, that is the test to run, because it takes away so much of the guesswork.
And I say that too. I'm like, it's kind of like a GPS system. You can like drive to anywhere without it, even somewhere that you've been, but the GPS just lets you know what's the best route to get there. And what I do want people to know is that we kind of just skim by it like it's no big deal, but it is a big deal. We retested Jake for mold after we detoxed him. And I think I'd even told you that one of the molds that he had, the ochre toxin, I was like, this may take some time. This is a mycotoxin that typically can take sometimes up to a year. We retested Jake. I'm pretty sure we tested him like end of September, very beginning of October. We got those results back, and you instituted the binder right away. And we were supporting him. Another important fact we left out, I initially, when I met with Carla, is one of the first things we did was we got him off the highly processed food and we did homemade personalized recipes for Jake before the intolerance test. And Carla can have a testament to this, that there were several times I'm like, hey, let's consider the intolerance test. Let's consider the intolerance test. And you're like, I just want to wait and see how X, Y, and Z goes. And I'm like, okay. That's like, we were both collaborative and compliant with each other. And when we did the mycotoxin test, we retested shortly after this new year of 2026. he came back negative for all the mycotoxins, which I literally saw that on a Monday morning, I remember, and had tears in my eyes. And I was like, holy cow, Jake, keeping us on our toes because not only did you clear mycotoxin that I thought could take so long, you're older, you had all these other things, and you are just like, nope, ain't no thing. And we shortly did the intolerance test afterwards and found out that one of the ingredients I put in his food, because nobody knew, was sweet potato. And that was the only ingredient I think that we had to remove from his recipes.
Yes.
And at the time, he was coughing. And tell the people what happened when we removed the sweet potato. Once we knew,
When
once we had the data to make that decision.
Once we removed the sweet potato, we did not have any more, like I said, any more coughing, no more bilious vomiting. His breathing was better. And I think at that point is when I really started to be a firm believer that these intolerance tests are spot on. And I also think the intolerance tests are great because I think pet owners, and you've touched on this in another one of your podcasts, don't have the full picture when it comes down to the difference between allergies and intolerances. And I think those words are kind of used simultaneously almost sometimes when they're really actually two different things. I've said before, do I believe Jake has a chicken allergy and it's something that he responds to pretty quickly? Yes. I think the vegetable oil and the sweet potato are an intolerance. I do not think digestively wise he's able to process them fully and break them down. And I think that's another really big educational piece to this is the difference between what a true allergy is and what a true intolerance is. I did know in the hospital last year that we were making no progress with even the smallest diet that had even the smallest amount of chicken in it. And I think that Jake responds in a very negative way to chicken pretty fast. That's why I knew we had to get rid of chicken just sort of immediately. But the other things, like I said, the vegetable oil and the sweet potato, when those came up, it was like, wow, this is really eye opening, because this is why this dog cannot eat basically any of this traditional kibble, because the traditional kibble has some form of that in it. And I've talked to a couple other pet owners about, the fact that many dogs are allergic to chicken. Many dogs, you hear that very often. It's like the first thing in the vet world that's talked about chicken and grass,
100%.
definitely. Those are the two, I think, most common things that people say that their dog is either allergic to or intolerant to. But I think without doing that test, again, a lot of it is guesswork because they're starting to show that so many of these intolerances go well beyond that. And they're things that maybe pet owners wouldn't even think of, like vegetable oil. It's like, wow, that could be corn, it could be soy. There's so many forms of vegetable oil that I'm like, that really breaks it down in small fragments to say, this is what a lot of these dogs struggle with is a majority of the ingredients in some way, shape, or form that are found in many of these foods. I share with people a lot, and I think it's great that I really feel home recipes and fresh food is really where it's at. I tell people all the time it doesn't need to be extreme. It doesn't need to be an all or nothing attitude. There are many people that don't have the time to cook, don't want to cook. And I tell those people, you know, talk to Dr. Bamonte because there's always a way to sort of figure out how to feed your pet and to do what really works for them. I think some dogs do okay on kibble, some probably better than others. And I tell people, if kibble's working for you and you just want to do some like fresh fruit or some toppers, that's always another option to kind of give the dog gut diversity and what they really need to thrive. That's another missing piece of this that I really feel pet owners should know is that gut diversity is really where it's at for pets. Um, Pets do not get the choice to say, this is what I want for breakfast, lunch, and dinner like we do. We get the choice to say, okay, I'm being really good about my food for a week, and this weekend I'm going to have a hamburger.
Yeah.
I'll hit my body with inflammation once this week, and then I'll be great for 5 days.
Yeah.
Dogs do not have, they just don't have the ability to say that. So when you're feeding the same foods and the same really processed food day in and day out, that's, I feel, when problems really start to brew because they're not hitting their gut every day with a diverse, population of what they really need food wise.
It's spoken like a well rounded, non-traditional dog mom. I mean, is she not incredible, guys? And it's not like Carla knew all this. She's learned along the way. I've learned. In fact, I told Carla this when we kind of joked back and forth, but like serious joked back in October because I remember, hey, I want to put you on the podcast. I want people to hear about Jake's story. This was October. This was 2 months in, and because of the improvement that he had had, which by the way, what is his current weight now?
Jake is 32 pounds, and I think the ideal weight for him actually is 32 pounds because I think we're holding on to a little bit of excess weight and or inflammation before all this happened. And I do think because we were on prednisone, cyclosporine, and the chlorambucil for months, Jake definitely, had some muscle wasting. We have gained back a lot of the muscle, but I'm happy with this weight because truly, from a body composition standpoint, the vets that have seen him said this is truly the best they have seen for a 14-year-old dog. So body composition wise, Jake looks the best he has looked truly in 14 years. I really attest that to the diet, removing carbohydrates, removing, processed food, getting the sugar down basically that he's intaking, and really being on a high protein, leafy green diet. And I think those things have helped him thrive, physically, mentally, spiritually, in all ways. The dog is really doing amazingly well on a home diet. So, like I said, I can't say enough about it.
And I'm pretty sure I remember that Jake was never like a big foodie. And now
No.
the man gets demanding when it is time to eat. Like he's like, Chef Carla, go cook for me, please, because I want my food. Like he craves eating. And like I was saying earlier, we were joking back in October, like, let's tell Jake's story because of the weight he stopped losing weight, which that was the first goal was okay, he was losing close to half a pound a week. He didn't have much more to lose. Not only did we get him to stop losing weight, we got him to gain a little bit of weight. And to get a senior dog to gain back appropriate weight and muscle, I'm gonna tell you, I've been practicing 12 years. It is rare. It is so rare. It takes intention. And I think removing the speed bumps in him, the toxins. So we have, to recap for people, we did the microbiome, we did the mineral and heavy metal analysis. We did his vitamin D, which led us to test his mycotoxins.
Mhm.
We did eventually did his we retested his mycotoxins, cleared him. We decided to finally do the intolerance, which let us know about the sweet potato, which we
Yes.
removed it. His coughing got better. We then decided to test him for glyphosate and make sure we weren't missing something there. He didn't have any glyphosate in his system. We retested his vitamin D. We left that out. We retested him beginning of January. He was 25, I think, point 6 or 7 when we originally tested him. End of September-ish. We retested him beginning of January. He got up to 101. So he's in that range, a little bit lower. We went a little bit longer, I think about another 4-ish weeks on the vitamin D. And then we
Yes.
just transitioned him. We are in the process of transitioning him to a supplement to help maintain that because we don't want to blindly keep giving him vitamin D because you can get too high on it. And I had no idea when we connected in August what would come of all this. I just knew that I was like, I'm also doing a Hail Mary for this dog. And I told you this in the email when I was like, okay, let's do this podcast because it just feels like the right time. And I told you, and I did have tears writing it, and I'm not going to have tears right now on this podcast, that I was like, Jake will always be part of me because I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Um, I finished a microbiome certification course and, or a course. And as part of the course, the course director, who's a veterinarian, who headed this with, I think there was like 15 or 20 of us in this, gave us the option to become certified in fecal microbiome therapy to be part of a database for when people are looking for a veterinarian to help with this. And I told Carla, I'm like, Jake is always be part of me because that he's my case that I'm submitting for this. And so he will allow me to be certified. God, because he's just so special. You and him are just so special to me. And just to see how far he's come. And I get so many pictures and videos of Jake, and it's just to be where I was in August, to have this email come from you where you were just like, I felt like you were almost like sending the email on your knees, being like, this is my last ditch effort. Please help me with my dog. And like I said, I felt the despair and I heard the despair, but you were always, even on the consult, you were poised and collected. You've always been so respectful. You have been so empowering. There have been times when you and I have had consults and I'm like, I am having a week. And you have like taken me to church and been like, listen here, like we are on mission here. And it has been such an honor to be part of Jake's story and to see this. And I hope that he has his 15th birthday party and he just continues to thrive. And not just for you and for him, but I hope that along the way, everyone who has met Jake, whether they are in the industry or not in the veterinary industry, that it just allows people to be open-minded, to see what happens when we take a step back, when we really try, and I say it all the time because no two pets are the same. We really look at that pet and rather put him in a box and be cookie cutter and look, be like, what is this pet trying to tell us? And we dig and we find that data so that we can make the decisions like what is truly possible. And I tell people all the time that this is what's happened with Jake, and this has been since August. Like
Yes.
sometimes this stuff takes time, and we both know that Jake is sensitive. And so I will tell, and Carla and I, it's like we almost sent an email at the same time. I'm like, here's his dose. I want you to start with an eighth of it. And I want you to do that for a week and then work up. He's very delicate, but the way I look at it is that he's delicate, his body is honest. And that's how I look at it, is
Yes.
that his body is just so honest. It tells you exactly where it is. And so I really want to thank you for allowing me to be part of his story, a part of his life, part of your life, and for really advocating for him and for other pets and for being on today and sharing your story with Jake. And I hope that and my prayer is that one pet parent hears this or watches this and is like, I have hope now. That's what
Yes. Like I told you, I've always believed in the statement in life, when you dig, you find, and data makes decisions. And I think that unless you really advocate and you test and you push for answers, that's really where it's at for a lot of these dogs. I think that pet parents should hear that, again, dogs don't talk. So without testing and without finding out answers, it's really hard to help them in a healing way. And I'll use that word, not just kind of surviving and, here's a pill, here's a shot, but in a healing way to help them really thrive and live their best life. Since we did all the tests, Jake has, like I said, been really thriving this year. And for almost 15 years old, it's a pretty amazing miracle to show what the body is capable of doing when you kind of break things down, take a step back, live with intention, and really, like I said, push for the greater good of health. I think holistic medicine and integrative medicine to this day is really where it's at, because it's a whole package. It's a mind, body, and spirit. It's not just here's the symptoms, here's the pill. I think that way works maybe kind of acutely for a little while, but it doesn't really let the dog live their best life. So for a little bit more extra time, again, intention and a little bit of digging, it's really where like health is at for these pets long term. I think your approach, having an integrative approach, is so important, because we need to know with the Western world and the Eastern world when to kind of pull in and when to kind of pull out. I think that's a huge part of medicine today, is knowing what we should use sort of acutely, what we should use long term, and when to really look at the whole patient and say, maybe this way doesn't work for everybody. That's a big thing today, I feel, in medicine, is that every regimen is not going to work for every dog. There's a lot of things that don't work with Jake: medications, shots, shampoos. Like I said, tried it all. And through all of that, it has shown me to take a step back, dissect every little piece. And once you kind of do that and you gather all the information, you really can treat the dog in a way that they're living their best life, because you've kind of analyzed every angle. And Jake is really, like I said, living proof that we've taken a 14 and a half year old dog from 26 pounds back up to 32, who is eating his food every single night, who is truly demanding his food every single night. He barks for his food. It's pretty incredible to witness. And like I said, I just feel that these tests for pet owners are really where the future of medicine lies, because so much is under the hood that's not in a CBC or an electrolyte panel. Um, these tests, while they may not be as common or used in a lot of traditional settings, I think it's where it's at because there's a lot of things that are hidden in the dog world.
So well said. So well said. And if you guys are not following along on Facebook or Instagram, you can follow me on Instagram at the _non-traditional veterinarian, and on Facebook, I believe I'm the same thing. And the reason I'm saying that is that in the next few weeks, I will be posting a post about Jake with a picture that Carla sent me recently of a comparison of where he was with his muscle. You can see it. It's a side-by-side collage picture that she posted of, and I'll get the date ranges, but you can see the comparison in his face, in his skull, where he had muscle atrophy, and now
Yes.
it's improved and it's rebuilt. And this is a senior dog, and this is the power of getting data to make decisions and to be intentional and do what this dog needs, not what every other dog needs. So thank you for being here, Carla. Please give Jake the
Thank you for
biggest
having
hug.
me.
Maybe a little extra little food for him tonight from me as well. So tune in next week for next week's episode on the non-traditional veterinarian.